Hello, reader. So we're going to move on to idea number 4. And this one is my article Zeitgeist of 2025, idea number 4. 12.68 yield. Now, that was based upon the price, which at the time I think was 50.5p. Today, it is 55. So these numbers are obviously slightly lower. But I think the idea still very much stands. Very much stands. So yeah. Look, the thinking here is that the sector's been punished based upon power curves, based upon discount rates, based upon a variety of valuation methods, which are interesting. I'm going to try not to be rude, but you can go to 2 different companies in the same sector with the same assets that are discounting them very differently. Why? Different people are telling them to discount them differently. It to me feels that when you go back 3 years and look at annual reports from 3 years ago and the assumptions they were making then, and fast forward 3 years, were those assumptions they were making back then accurate? No. So, to my mind, one way of looking at these discounts that could be described as questionable, I'll choose my words carefully, or at least, show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that we're all going to be enjoying cheap electricity forevermore. I just don't buy it. I do buy it because we all have electricity in our houses, and the idea that we're somehow going to enjoy cheaper electricity, I just don't see it. And in fact, I think with our current government and our current North Sea strategy and everything else, I mean, if anything, electricity prices are going to head higher, far higher. And it's not just the UK. I mean, America obviously enjoys very, very low prices, but there's reasons to think that even the Americans, I mean, they're going to be exporting more and more of their gas. There's more and more evidence that the unlimited or seemingly unlimited Permian Basin is perhaps peaking, and after it peaks, it'll start to decline. There's lots of reasons why energy in America, which is abundant and cheap, will not remain so forever. I think that, to my mind, it's a mathematical inevitability. And so, look, the reason I really like SEIT is that it plays into that whole piece around energy is not going to get cheaper. It just isn't. We're going to use a lot more of it because of AI and because of industrialization, electrification, population growth, the fact that we're growing wealthier. These are all reasons that we just use more and more and more and more power, and the forecasts are that we're going to use more and more and more power. And demand curves don't curve that way; they converge that way. That's just economics. Now, obviously, if we can invent fusion or some new form of power that's essentially free, then great. But we haven't done that yet, and perhaps we never will. I mean, you eagle-eyed readers will know that I'm a great fan of fusion. I would love for it to succeed. I've got investment into First Light Fusion, which is a IP group holding. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. That's an OB24 idea. We're here to talk about 2025. But the context is that energy is not going to. My thesis is that energy is not going to get cheaper, no matter, and if people are putting in discounts to say that it will be, and therefore, we've got to discount the NAV because energy's somehow going to get cheaper. Have a think. I mean, that to me is just, my opinion is that it's hidden value. Anyway, I could just rabbit on about that for a while. And I'm conscious that we're 5 minutes in and my last video was 50. And I want to try and make this one a bit more snappy, like this should be a snappy video for you. So yeah, look, I mean, this is a very great payer, dividend payer. Um, it has a series of assets across different countries, across different sectors. The whole thesis around this is its energy conservation and energy generation, and just looking at ways of playing that electrification theme. Um, it has delivered good results, I think, pretty much very consistently. It's a 250 business, so we're in idea number 4, and so far half the ideas are a FTSE 350. So I'm in danger of losing my speculative reputation if I don't watch out. Obviously, we've got another sucker coming up a bit later, but yeah, there's we've got 2 FTSE 100, FTSE 2, FTSE, and then we've got another one here. And yeah, I think that might be all of them. But yeah, look, it's I suppose the way I look at it is, that was the market price when I wrote this article. So for 542 million, you can buy a business that over the past 3 years delivered that much portfolio performance. Now, portfolio performance isn't the same as the dividend, but that's the thing that the dividend comes out of. So it kind of is and it isn't, if that makes sense. And I say here that 173 of dividends has been extracted out. So that dividend from that outlay, that's like a third of your money back in 3 years, nearly a third. But yeah, it's also I guess noticeable that the performance of the portfolio is, I mean, obviously it's sort of, we had a downward movement here, but this the latest results is very 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 strong. Portfolio performance being the EBITDA of the holdco. So what you've got to understand with this one is that you've got topco, that is the trust, is the thing that you're investing into, that they then have essentially a series of subsidiaries, and the subsidiaries are there sort of making the profits and doing the operations. And then what they'll do is they'll remit back to the holdco portfolio performance. So it's kind of a code word for profit. But just to kind of complicate it a little bit more, because obviously uh, that these businesses are equity owned by Topco, but they also have debt. And I think I might talk about this in the article where um, we'll come back to that bit. But there is yeah, here we go. There is different holdings with different levels of debt. Obviously, this percentage of GAV, gross asset value. So 1/7, well, sorry, start again. 1/6 of primary energy is owned by its creditors, technically, because it's borrowed 126 million of debt. So primary energy is worth £750 million by the looks of things. No, sorry, start again. Um, Debt as a percentage of the enterprise value is 40%. What's this telling us here and here? Sorry, I should have probably thought about this before I started recording. But I think this debt here is the enterprise value. So the enterprise value is the value of the the market cap plus minus the debt. So that suggests that the holding is 60%. So that would make the holding worth 180, supported by debt of 120. So that's where we get that 40 from. And then this percentage here, thinking about it, I think this is the percentage of the SEIT portfolio. I think percentage portfolio valuation. There we go. Yes, got it. Yeah. So apologies, I've got that slightly muddled up there. But yeah, look, I mean the total gearing. So there is debt at Topco as well as at Holdcos. So yeah, look, there's the portfolio companies. So again, there is some level of debt, but the debt is quite modest. They are paying down debt. The debt is, as you can see there, 6% is quite reasonable, so it's not terribly. And they have done a couple of things in the last 12 months to drive down the cost of that debt. So even like here, for example, Primary Energy reduced its interest rate by 0.75. Basically, just meant an extra million a year of portfolio performance, which could just pay down the debt 1 million faster. This was interesting. So going back to what I was saying about how essentially there's a series of value judgments being made on the assets to say, I believe these assets deserve a higher discount rate because they're more risky or because they're future of power prices, perceived risk. Yeah, I mean, and I obviously am being slightly sarcastic when I say, in other words, if you feel that an energy generating asset in 2024 when we're not in lockdown, and there's no pandemic, and we've got AI that we didn't have 3-4 years ago, um, we like it being more risky. Explain that one to me, because I'm a bit confused. I mean, back when we were all in lockdown and we didn't know whether we'd ever escape the virus, whether whether a cure, whether a vaccine would be found. And so what, it's less risky back then than today? I don't get it. So look, I mean, I'm just having a moan, but I kind of tend to look at this 160 million and think, well, that's 160 million that needs to go back on the NAV one day. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that there's any scientific basis for that, but I can't see that there's any scientific basis for it being introduced in the first place. And what gets put on logically would one day come off when it's no longer relevant, because it's just a value judgment. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they'll have actuarial folks and all sorts of methods and principles to follow. Excuse me, principles to follow to kind of come up with the numbers. I'm not saying that what they're doing is wrong. It's what they have to do. That's the rules. But for you and I, reader, I don't know. That's kind of what's going through my brain when I look at that 161, and that's over 3 years of annual reports. So I've basically taken I think again I've got I've looked at what I call the noise factors. So again, foreign exchange, the dollar weakens and then the next year the dollar strengthens. So generally these things more or less come out in the wash unless a currency is fundamentally undervalued or overvalued, and then it might revert back to, in fact, you'd imagine it will eventually revert back, because if you've ever studied economics, you'll know that there's pressures that are the imbalances will theoretically correct themselves over time, because there's pressures on the two economies to rebalance. So yeah, look, to me, these set of assumptions and pluses and minuses are kind of almost things where I look at it and say, well, to me that's different to the pounds and pence and dollars and cents performance of the assets, the actual profits that they're making. to my mind, to understand what those are, and also to look at how they're performing against their budget. So this is the 2023 actual, this is the 2024 actual, but it was interesting. And again, I just sort of gleaned these things from little parts of the annual report. That the budget was this, but you know, to be in this year here and then to have a forecast and a budget of that, that was the budgeted growth that they were working with. Now, see that 759% is kind of moving from a loss to a profit. So you could kind of ignore that one theoretically, but even if you strip that one away, that budgeted growth of, I mean, we're looking at sort of well into the double digits, you know, probably about 25 to 30% budgeted growth to these assets. I mean, that is really impressive. I think it's impressive. Um, and it's funny because you don't really see any of that. It's only when you kind of dive into the numbers and look at what what the numbers are telling you that you kind of go flipping heck. You know, that's, you know, that is really, I mean, pretty good. Yeah, so EVN and Onyx are growing fast ahead of budget. Onyx being a great beneficiary to US solar um, project developer. They essentially they will kind of like what we had in the UK, where businesses would come in and stick panels on your roof and give you some free power, but essentially they said like all the power that that generates, other than the free power you consume, we're going to sort of have the rights to sell that power for the next 25 years. That's kind of what Onyx's business model is. So they're not building solar panels that then pass in ownership over to Acme Incorporated. Instead, Acme Incorporated gets a bit of free power and a bit of a tickle, but Onyx essentially are building up a set of income generating assets, and that's why they're cash hungry, is because they're not selling anything, as in they're not selling the capital investment. They're creating a set of income generating assets. So that's, yeah, so that's kind of capital hungry for that reason. I did ask on the investor call, had they considered just selling the assets to the people, you know, to the customers, but I didn't get a straight answer. But it, to me, that would be the obvious thing to do to recycle the capital, would be to just sell the solar project um, to the partner that's, you know, the business where you're installing it. But, you know, who am I to say? I don't run a FTSE 250 company. So anyway, yeah, there's a series of assets. I mean, Oliva is a Spanish uh, uh, energy generator that's focused on taking uh, I think it's sort of waste material from olive oil production and turning that into heat and energy. We've got Varten that's based in one of the Nordic countries. I think it's Sweden. Well, there you go. Stockholm Gas gives you the clue, doesn't it? Um, and again, that's biogas, so energy as a service. So RED is a large industrial park. It's the Eastman Park, I think it is, in the US. So they've got some combined heat and power, as well as um, power provision to the tenants. So there's various things that are going on there. Onyx, we've talked about. Primary is blast furnaces in the US. So with the reshoring and encouragement, and obviously the recent news around Japan and America, Japan trying to buy, I think it was Japan trying to buy American steel. You can imagine that this would be going somewhere over the next. And EVN is the electric vehicle network in the UK, um, and they're growing fast. Obviously, again, a lot of political support for electric vehicles. Once again, the the new government. So, and this was quite interesting that that for businesses that they will cover 75% of the cost if you're an SME. Now, I funnily enough, I was at a Christmas dinner yesterday, and one of my friends said, "Oh yes, I've ordered a Ford Mustang, not the 5 litre petrol, but the electric vehicle." And I said, "Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And are you getting a home charger?" He said, "Yes, but I don't expect to use it because my employer has charging facilities. So I'll drive to work, charge my vehicle, and I doubt I'll use the the I think the home charger was coming as part of a lease package for free. So so he kind of had it as a just in case, but pretty much said, he will go from spending whatever he's spending in commuting to his place of work to his place of work paying for all his car travel, which, apart from obviously the cost of his monthly lease, I suppose. But yeah, that's pretty strong economics for at least for my friend. And I'm sure he's not the only one. Anyway, coming back to this idea, we're at 20 minutes. Yeah, so the portfolio performance was very strong. I skipped past it, but this area here where they talked about again, I just gleaned this from the annual report. These are all the different ideas. So Red Rochester, the industrial park, Onyx, the solar panels, primary energy, the blast furnaces. Basically, just if we introduce a new blast furnace, we can improve our profit performance by 30 million a year. If we add some new services, I don't know what they would be doing here. They don't say either. I mean, it's I just wrote out what they said was the idea um, with without really questioning it. But I suppose that introducing new services would potentially add 7.5 billion a year. So when you look at this, I mean, this could boost things by up to 150, which, I mean, okay, maybe not all of these ideas will happen, or, we don't know what the capex would be, and therefore what the additional debt, and therefore the cost of, obviously there's a lot of factors to kind of for them to work through, and realistically, we're not going to get that level of exposure from what's going on at all all the holdings. But there's potential, and of course, here we can see that the portfolio performance is improving year by year. So, yeah, it's a strong dividend. It's covered. It's a covered dividend. It kind of feels like, you know, I mean, nothing's guaranteed in this world, and this article's not advice. This video is not advice, and everything that I talk about is not investment advice. You make your own investment decisions. But I kind of look at this and think, well, um, you know, everyone's going to need energy tomorrow and next week and next month and next year. So um, it's quite hard to see how the wheels would fall off this one. It's not to say that it couldn't. I mean, they have had Red Rochester, I think, had a blip with its profit performance. I think it had somebody leave the park, and therefore they had a gap in their revenue. So nothing's guaranteed, but it's obviously a mixture of assets, mixture of technologies, mixture of countries. So it's not an eggs in all the eggs in one basket approach. The debt is not dramatically high. The cost of the debt's not dramatically high. Um, I think yeah, you can see these are some of those discount rates um, that we can see across the assets. So um, yeah, so America is an 8.8% risk, whereas the UK is an 8.1. So more risky in the US. but it's the premium that drives the increase, and that premium is increased. But of course, behind all of this is it's based upon the particular assets. And in fact, one of the questions I asked and they answered was, well, why has, I think it was, why has, in fact, it wasn't this specific slide, it was the 2024 September, and that had moved, and I questioned, well, why had um, why had the discount increased? And they said, well, it's because the mixture of assets has changed because of the sale of UU Solar. Oh, by the way, they did sell an asset which was, I mean, it wasn't at a 38% discount, which is what the NAV discount. Sorry, this discount is, yeah, the on the face of it discount is, let's have a look. The on the face of it discount's only about 30. Yeah, I get to 58 because I think that's if I strip out cash, I get to 58. Yeah, so on book value, back when it was 50p, it's 44.5. So at 55, it's about 40% discount from book value. Yeah, yeah, sorry, it's not excluding cash, it's excluding this discount rate, discount. I've basically stripped that back out to kind of come up with my own, I'm getting a 58% discount from the book value, based on the market price, and then you can apply, that's 58% off, and then you can add back on whatever discount you feel is appropriate. And if you feel the discount is zero, you don't add anything back on. It's as simple as that, and you're getting it at, well, let's say 54%, give or take, discount to NAV. So anyway, that's kind of the gist of the idea. I hope that's been a useful walk through. Um, do welcome your feedback, good and bad. Um, I'll carry on doing some more of these. Whether I'll survive to do 25, I don't know. I kind of, it's very difficult just talking to a camera to um, try and convey these ideas when, I suppose, yeah, I guess the format's a new one for me. So to be doing. So, but hopefully this is useful for you. Welcome your feedback, and thank you very much for watching this video. Cheerio for now.